Lin was an orphan, marked by tragedy. On the day he turned 18, he not only carried the weight of his mother's death in a car accident, but also inherited the massive gambling debt left behind by his father. And it was at that moment, in the middle of the loneliness of his small apartment, that the impossible happened. A god literally invaded the place and dragged him into the spiritual world. In this new realm, Lin was chosen to wield the system of the god of war. Above the god himself, a monosphere began to shine with a light so intense it changed the entire color of the sky. It was the beginning of something immense, a divine system that promised to unleash Lin's hidden potential, awakening within him a cheat-like that would make him evolve faster than any being in that new world. With his spiritual eyes activated, the god explained that Lin was to study at the most renowned magic academy, and for that, he had already written a personal letter of recommendation. Lin didn't think twice. He had nothing left in that cruel world he came from. But before leaving, he wanted to know why he, of all people, had been chosen. The god hesitated, as if doubting his own choice, and flew away laughing, relieved to finally be free from the curse of bad luck that had plagued him. Right after that, the spirit of the god of war system manifested before Lin. Invisible to anyone else's eyes, it gave him his first mission: help someone trapped inside a teleportation portal. Lin raised his hand, trying to absorb that colossal energy, but out of nowhere, a girl emerged from the portal and stepped right on him. That girl was Zion, who would later become Lin's great love interest. Even in pain, he took her hand to help himself up. The system's reaction was immediate. It detected that Lin had touched a woman for the first time in his life, and to give this romance a little push, it decided to swap Lin's free skin for a paid one. Before Zion's eyes, Lin's body shone with a magical aura. His appearance transformed, and she was mesmerized. She introduced herself as Zion of the Vermilion Bird Clan. Lin, not understanding a single word of what she said, simply replied that he didn't get any of it. Even so, she pulled him forcefully into the portal, and he smiled, feeling like his luck had finally turned. Right after crossing the portal, the system displayed a notification. Lin had received 40 affinity points with Zion. Status: love at first sight. At the Magic Academy, the atmosphere was frantic. All the new students were rushing to take the aptitude test, a trial that determined their magic ranking from 1 to 100. To do that, they just had to touch the lustrous divine monolith, a magical mirror that revealed a person's class. First, a guy named Shang handed in his recommendation letter, one of the 7 sacred letters of the gods. He was sent straight to Class 1, and the crowd went wild. Then it was Zion's turn. When she touched the mirror, an overwhelming energy descended from the sky. Class 1 as well. Finally, it was Lin's moment. He handed in his letter of recommendation, leaving the instructor in shock. It was a letter written by Master Loop, the only known being who had transcended even the gods themselves and achieved immortality. The numerology instructor analyzed Lin's energy and made a bombshell announcement. That boy was destined to cause miracles that would shake the entire spiritual world. The crowd went insane, everyone shouting Lin's name. He finally felt like a true anime protagonist. But then came the plot twist. He was the first student in the Academy's entire history to enter Class 1 without having any magic power at all. The students went nuts. One of them, named Daba, walked past him boiling with anger, and the system detected that hostility. When Daba was tested by the mirror, he was thrown straight into the lowest class. Humiliated, he shouted that it was unfair for Lin to join the elite without any magic whatsoever. Another student, overcome by rage, challenged Lin to a duel. But before things could explode, Zion appeared out of nowhere, grabbed him, and flew off with him. She apologized for exposing him to so much hate, but promised that from now on, she would protect him. That night, Lin began exploring his system. He discovered he could gain levels by completing cheat missions, like push-ups. 10, then 20, and soon he was doing 100 with a single finger. But to reach the 4th stage, he needed to do 10 billion. It would take 1,000 years of effort, until the system suggested it might be able to help. On the way, Lin was ambushed by a mysterious spy. Sharp reflexes, spiritual eyes activated. He dodged the attacks with surgical precision. Even with his spiritual eyes helping him predict the strikes, Lin was slammed against a fence so hard, it felt like his bones would shatter. The attacker vanished in the blink of an eye, reappeared with insane speed, and landed a devastating blow. When Lin managed to catch his breath, he recognized the face. It was Daba. Consumed by desperation, Daba activated a dark talisman. The system immediately warned, deadly danger detected. The talisman's energy paralyzed Lin, trapping his body within an invisible field. The system begged him to use a secret option, an emergency key. In the next instant, a mystical aura spread across the field. Daba hurled his mana like a spear ready to finish him off, but a sword shattered the attack mid-air. Xian appeared like a vengeful goddess, preventing any further movement from the enemy. Lin smiled when he saw her, relieved, but the tension quickly returned. A scream echoed across the field. The real Daba appeared, challenging Lin. Xian realized the other one was an imposter. The fake Daba tried to strike her from behind, but Lin stepped in front and blocked the attack. A red aura burst forth, absorbing the enemy's energy. With his final move, Lin activated the celestial portal, opening a rift for Xian to counterattack with everything she had. The imposter fled, but victory came with a price. The technique destroyed Lin's spiritual core. He fell, struggling to breathe, feeling like he was about to break. But not from pain, from evolution. He felt he was on the verge of reaching the fourth stage. Xian, relieved to have misunderstood, smiled. The two stood in silence, gazing at the sky. Then Xian confessed that she had joined that academy with one goal. She wanted the strength to protect someone, and now that someone was Lin. She promised she wouldn't fail. Lin squeezed her hand and the system updated. Their bond rose to 60%. The status changed from love at first sight to sleeping together on the first night, even if just figuratively for now. The next day, Lin arrived in class looking like a zombie. He had stayed up all night, paranoid about new ambushes. He tried to warn the instructor, but she softened, saying everyone was his enemy now. Even she would be stricter with him. Lin noticed people whispering, and the system suggested he activate his spiritual eyes. When he listened, he confirmed the worst. Everyone wanted to beat him up, and worse, they wanted to steal Xian from him. During class, Lin was stunned when he saw the teacher, an unbelievably gorgeous woman. A new waifu had entered the game. He tried to check her level but couldn't. Xian noticed Lin hadn't commented on her beauty, only her power, and that made her happy. But Lin, with a mischievous look, thought, "Another one for my harem." The new teacher walked past him. Their eyes met intensely. Xian noticed and already suspected she was being cheated on in real time. Soon after, Shang entered the room, and the guy behind them whispered that maybe Lin was thinking of switching areas. Lin complained that everyone there was too beautiful but reassured Xian that she was wonderful too. She obviously hadn't expected that compliment from him and froze for a moment. The class began with everyone meditating. Lin, having no idea what was going on, activated his spiritual eyes and saw his classmates' auras rising to the heavens. He tried to understand, but couldn't absorb a thing. Xian promised that later she'd give him a special lesson, a very hands-on one, including anatomy. Throughout the day, Lin kept wondering why all the instructors were inanimate objects. Until finally, the teacher with long legs appeared. He mentally celebrated. Thank the gods, someone who actually walks. She pointed at him as the class representative. The topic of the lesson, the mortal world. Each student received a cell phone, and what did they do? Played games. That's right. The whole class turned into a LAN house. Lin was outraged. Nobody here studied anything. The teacher told him to relax. Enjoy yourselves. You'll just play games all day. But Lin actually wanted to learn. Finally, the numerology class began. A real teacher showed up. A true miracle. He said everyone would sleep during class and write down their dreams afterward. He counted to 3, and Lin felt his eyelids grow heavy. He could barely keep them open. The last words he heard from the numerology teacher echoed like a bad omen. It'll be a bloodbath when you wake up. And he was right. Lin awoke to the sound of an angelic voice. But when he opened his eyes, he saw Xian trying to wake him. The next class was magic, and the teacher announced a practical duel for everyone to cultivate their powers. Lin immediately got the message. He was about to be beaten up by half the school. The instructor called Shang, the class monitor, and then summoned Xian for the duel. The words of the previous teacher suddenly made perfect sense. He walked toward the field, but Xian grabbed him and took his place. She threw a fireball straight at Shang, who simply blocked it with his bare hand. Xian stepped back and landed a kick, but he defended himself with effort. She retreated and tried to flank him with blazing bursts, but Shang dodged gracefully and counterattacked. She doesn't give up. She activates her blazing aura, flies through the sky, and forms a phoenix made of flames. In a spectacular attack, she dives straight at him, but Chang reveals his trump card, a dome of water that blocks everything. The system buzzes, demanding attention. Lin uses his spiritual eyes and identifies a weak point in the water formation. Zion attacks with everything she's got, trying to shatter the defense, but Chang mocks her, saying she hasn't cultivated enough. A magic circle appears above her and triggers a gravitational attack that slams her to the ground. Without thinking, Lin jumps into action. He activates the celestial portal, unleashes a burst of energy, and faces Tang, who stands there in disbelief. Lin envelops his hand in red aura, ready to end it all. Chang tries to convince him to surrender. Lin thinks fast, better to take a punch than to be, and he hurls the monosphere straight at him. But Chang dodges easily and activates magical chains that bind both Lin and Zion. Gravity tightens, and Lin smiles. He shatters the chains with a golden flash, reaching the 4th stage in the middle of battle. Chang realizes too late that everything had been part of the plan. Lin destroys the formation and breaks free. The system announces, to reach level C now, he'll need spiritual stones. 10, then 10 plus 10, then 10 times 10. A steep climb ahead, class ends. Tang approaches and, surprisingly, offers to help him evolve. Lin wastes no time and asks for 130 spiritual stones. Zion feels embarrassed, thinking he's begging. Lin doesn't understand, apologizes, but Chang smirks and hands him 1,000 spiritual stones, walking away like a true gigachad. The system updates the status. The two become soul brothers, even if one of them is in the harem. Suddenly, the second love interest appears. Suwaner. Lin goes straight for it. "Wanna date me?" She laughs. "You're way too ugly, but we can be friends." He tries to keep his cool, but the system seals his fate. Status, trapped in the friend zone. The God of War system issues a new challenge, the Freedom Tournament. If Lin finishes among the top 50, he'll receive a random mythical item from the Singularity Point. But if he fails, he'll be turned into a girl for a whole year. Yes, he's the only person on the planet cursed like that, and he can't refuse the mission unless he gets cured again. Waking up from the nightmare, Lin switches into turbo mode, consumes all his spiritual stones, levels up 3 times at once, and uses his newly gained super speed to come up with a plan. He studies the tournament map. He'll be facing over 50,000 people. A true battle royale, like Fortnite, but with magic. With his stats lagging behind, he's almost at the bottom of the ranking. The situation is so pathetic, he starts to accept that he's about to become a pretty girl. The next day, he makes a desperate decision. "Zion, can I be your best friend?" She looks disgusted. "What? Are you crazy?" He laughs, pretending it was a joke, but deep down, he knows rock bottom has a basement. Lin can't take it anymore. It's already too much humiliation for one life. Exhausted, he begs the system for any mission that could help him recover even a shred of dignity. The system, pitying his misery, unlocks the next mission. To reach the 8th stage, he must defeat someone from the 9th stage. Lin gulps. He immediately thinks of Zion, but fighting her seriously? Impossible. So he decides to do some side quests first and learn divine-level magic. One of them asks him to collect the essence of the mountain. Lin has no idea what that means, but he's already thinking of ways to cheat the system. His plan? Convince Zion to lose to him on purpose. The next morning, he tries to ask her for help. Zion, all sweet and innocent, says she'd do anything for him. After all, he's saved her life several times. To her, Lin is the best person in existence. With his heart racing, he hesitates, and instead of asking her to throw the fight, he blurts out, "Can you give me the essence of the mountain?" Silence. Zion doesn't get it and refuses, confused. He tries asking Tang for help, but the guy refuses immediately. "I'd only reveal my weakness if it were for a surprise attack because we're brothers." Lin feels the weight of friendship and can't betray a brother. So he decides to try Zion again, one of the most beautiful places on campus. He kneels before her with all the drama of a teen romance protagonist and says, "There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but I didn't have the courage." Zion starts blushing. He's finally going to confess. But when the conversation ends, she replies, "Of course you can attack me by surprise." Yes, she completely misunderstood. Tang shows up and says he believes Lin can win. He even starts teaching him secret techniques to defeat Zion. The first one, tie her up, 50 Shades of Magic style. The next day, Lin says he's ready, but before he can even get close, Zion stands up and hands him the so-called essence of the mountain. Even so, he activates his magical chains and learns while watching her vulnerable pose. And then everything goes wrong. Zion freaks out, runs away screaming, and calls him a pervert. He just stands there, staring at his own hands thinking, "I'm never washing these again." She still throws the gift she had brought for him and calls him an idiot. Devastated, Lin goes back to cry on Tang's shoulder. After the drama, he finds the notes Zion left behind, a magical tracker to protect him and instructions on how to use the essence. When he touches it, he ends up consuming the item, and suddenly his stomach turns into a battlefield. The system gives the final warning: magical diarrhea for 13 days activated. But the Freedom Tournament is in 10. In other words, Lin will have to face 50,000 opponents with his intestines in full collapse mode. Zion, on the other hand, waits for an apology that never comes. She spends the night awake. Lin spends the night in the bathroom. He skips every class. People start mocking him for being a coward. Tang shows up, worried. You're possessed by an inner demon. So he decides to chant the Heart Sutra with all his soul, creating waves of sacred energy. Lin, still trapped on the toilet, feels the purification speeding up. What am I even watching? Even with his guts screaming, Lin begs, please, do that every day. Chang goes into spiritual DJ mode and starts chanting verses as if performing at the Monk's Tomorrowland. Lin suffers, but he feels the purification working. Zion hears everything, but turns her face away. He still hasn't apologized. Over the following days, Lin releases enough fertilizer to reforest the continent. And still, on the day of the tournament, he's got 3% impurity left in his body. That's when a giant dog appears. It sniffs Lin curiously and introduces itself. My name is Davai. I know you're suffering. The dog tries to heal Lin. Soon after, the Supreme Elder appears explaining the competition's rules. A golden light will protect the participants, and if they take too much damage, they'll be teleported to safety. All the students are thrown straight into the battlefield. Yes, Lin, still in full intestinal crisis mode, is parachuting straight into hell. Lin was teleported right into the chaos, landing in front of an opponent who, upon seeing that he was already at the 7th stage, begged for mercy. But Lin advanced with a threatening aura, drew his sword in a blink, and shattered it with his bare hands. Pathetic, he said. You didn't even bring the most important item for this war, toilet paper. With that, he turned around and walked away like a soap opera protagonist, disappearing into the sunset, until Yeqing showed up, asking where Lin was. Can you throw them off my trail? Lin lied, saying he went the other way. One bluff a day keeps danger away, he thought. But Yeqing saw through the lie immediately. He ordered Davai to gather all the weaker students. I'll hunt them down one by one. Meanwhile, Zion refused to look for Lin. She had promised she'd only go after him when he came to her first. In the middle of the wilderness, Lin fought against time. Only 1% of purification left, but a student found him and tried to challenge him. Lin begged for 5 minutes, just 5. Before he could negotiate, 4 more students appeared, all holding grudges from past defeats. The first one, poor guy, had no reason to be there and got knocked out by the others. Desperate, Lin threw out an idea. Why don't you fight each other first? The winner takes all the money they agreed immediately. While they fought, Lin focused on his final progress and reached 100%. The system rewarded him with a divine technique, the mountain-shaking fist. He awoke renewed. A new man, pure soul, elevated mind. Who would have thought diarrhea would turn him into an anime philosopher? The group charged at him, but with a single punch loaded with magic, Lin destroyed them all in one blow. The system acknowledged the victory. Mission accomplished. Defeating the 9th stage enemy promoted Lin's level, but he was still far from the top. The path to the top 50 was impossible without climbing one more step. To learn the next divine ability, he had to climb Black Rock Peak, and to reach the 9th stage, he'd have to defeat 10 level 9 opponents.